The moment Daniel Carter dropped to his knees in the narrow hallway of his old apartment, pride finally shattered into something raw and desperate. His hands trembled as he clutched the edge of the faded carpet, his eyes fixed on the woman who once meant home to him. In that moment, love was no longer romantic or beautiful, it was survival. He wasn't asking for her heart back. He was begging for mercy. Begging her to pretend she still loved him, just long enough to save the fragile world he was trying to hold together for his son. If stories about kindness, second chances, and unexpected miracles move you, take a second right now to like this video, share it with someone who believes in hope, subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. Daniel had never imagined his life would narrow down to this single, humiliating moment. Once, he had been a man full of plans. Now he was a single father balancing grief, debt, and exhaustion like fragile glass plates that threatened to shatter at any second. His mornings began before sunrise, packing lunches, and tying small shoes with fingers stiff from overtime shifts. His nights ended with whispered promises to his sleeping son, Ethan, promises that tomorrow would somehow be better, even when Daniel had no idea how. After the divorce, everything seemed to unravel at once. The apartment was smaller, the bills louder, the silence heavier. Ethan's laughter was the only sound that reminded Daniel why he kept pushing forward. The breaking point came quietly, not with shouting or drama, but with a letter slipped under the door. The school's final notice warned that Ethan's enrollment would be suspended due to unpaid fees. That school was more than a building, it was stability, safety, and the last piece of normal life Daniel could offer his child. Switching schools wasn't an option. Ethan had already lost his family as he knew it. Losing his friends, his teachers, and his routine might break something inside him that Daniel feared he could never fix. That was why Daniel found himself in front of his ex-wife, Melissa Carter, swallowing his pride whole. He knew how it looked. A failed husband. A struggling father. A man asking for something that sounded ridiculous and humiliating. He didn't ask her to come back. He asked her to pretend. Pretend they were still together at a school family interview that could unlock financial aid tied to two-parent households. Pretend, just for a short while, that love hadn't died under the weight of misunderstandings and exhaustion. It wasn't manipulation in his heart, it was desperation wrapped in shame. What Daniel didn't know was that someone else had been watching his quiet struggle for months. At work, he was invisible by design. He arrived early, left late, never complained, never asked for favors. He declined team dinners, avoided conversations about weekends, and brushed off concern with tired smiles. To most people, he was just another employee in the background. But to Rebecca Hale, the company's CEO, Daniel stood out in a way no performance report could capture. She noticed the way he answered late-night emails within minutes. The way he sometimes paused before leaving the office, staring at a photo on his phone as if gathering strength. She noticed the exhaustion he carried not just in his body, but in his soul. Rebecca had built her empire from nothing after losing her own family years ago. She recognized the look of someone who was surviving rather than living. When she accidentally overheard Daniel on the phone one evening, voice breaking as he tried to explain a situation he clearly hated himself for being in, something stirred inside her that no boardroom victory ever had. She didn't interrupt. She didn't confront him. She watched. And she waited. The day of the school interview arrived like a storm cloud Daniel couldn't outrun. Melissa showed up, distant but composed, wearing the face of someone who had learned to protect herself from old pain. They walked side by side like strangers rehearsing a memory that no longer belonged to them. Daniel's heart pounded through every step, every forced smile, every signature. He felt exposed, fragile, and smaller than he had ever felt in his life. All he could think about was Ethan, waiting at home, trusting his father to fix something that felt impossible to fix. What Daniel didn't see was Rebecca Hale standing across the street, watching them enter the building. She had followed her instinct, not her schedule. For the first time in years, she canceled meetings and ignored calls. She saw a man willing to destroy his pride to protect his child, and she saw a woman torn between resentment and lingering care. But most of all, she saw a system that punished vulnerability and rewarded silence. And she decided she would no longer be a bystander. In the days that followed, Daniel braced himself for disappointment. He prepared for rejection letters, backup plans that didn't exist, and the slow heartbreak of explaining to Ethan why things had to change again. But instead, something shifted. A call came from the school, not with warnings, but with confirmation. Full support. Extended assistance. No conditions that required pretending or performing. Just help. Real help. Then came the meeting request from Rebecca's office. Daniel walked in expecting reprimand or pity. What he received was something far more powerful. Recognition. Rebecca didn't offer charity. She offered respect. She spoke of resilience, of unseen battles, of how strength often looks like silence. She told him she had been watching, not as a boss, but as someone who understood loss. And then she changed his life in ways that went far beyond money, by giving him flexibility, security, and the dignity of being seen. At home, the air felt lighter. Ethan laughed more freely. Daniel slept without fear tightening his chest. And Melissa, witnessing the transformation, began to see Daniel not as the man who failed their marriage, but as the father who never stopped fighting. Healing didn't come instantly, and love didn't magically return to what it once was, but something gentler and more honest took its place: mutual respect, shared responsibility, and peace. Just before the ending, take a moment to comment below and tell us what this story made you feel, because your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. In the end, Daniel learned that begging wasn't his weakness, loving deeply was his strength. He learned that sometimes the most powerful help comes from someone quietly watching, waiting for the right moment to step in. And he learned that even when love changes shape, kindness can still rebuild what life tried to take away. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, because every interaction helps stories of hope reach someone who might be standing on their knees right now, believing they are alone when they are not.